On the Eternal Dominion warship, there is an unbreakable rule. No one is allowed near the cell of the alien cat, a creature imprisoned for 3,821 years due to its unimaginable destructive power. When Lieutenant Gregor Vasquez accidentally criticizes the Emperor, he is sentenced to the most dangerous task on the ship, feeding the cat. However, Gregor has no idea that when he enters the containment area, the cat not only doesn't attack him but reacts strangely to a laser pointer he pulls from his pocket. Everything changes when the most powerful being in the universe becomes oddly playful with the light, causing the ship to shake and alarms to blare. This sudden shift makes Gregor realize that he's no longer just an average soldier, but now faces a creature that can alter the entire universe. The camera glides through the vast halls of the Eternal Dominion, its cold, metallic interior stretching endlessly. The air is thick with the hum of machinery, a constant reminder of the ship's mechanical heart. The corridors are lit by harsh, flickering lights that cast long, unnerving shadows, giving everything an eerie, sterile feel. Officers and crew move with calculated precision, their faces hardened and expressionless, as though bound by the same unspoken laws of the Empire that govern every inch of this enormous vessel. Their movements are swift, efficient, no wasted energy, no room for hesitation. In the background, the distant sound of machinery grinding and the occasional clinking of tools add to the sense of ceaseless activity, like a machine in perpetual motion. The atmosphere is thick with tension, an invisible weight that presses down on everything. Time here seems to move differently, slower, more deliberate. This is not just a ship, it is a fortress within the vast, cold emptiness of space. Inside a small, dimly lit office aboard the Eternal Dominion, Lieutenant Gregor Vasquez sits at a stark metal desk, his eyes bloodshot, scanning through a pile of paperwork that never seems to end. His uniform is slightly disheveled, a reflection of his weary mind and body. The dull hum of the ship's engines vibrates through the walls, a constant, almost hypnotic presence. The sterile, oppressive silence is broken only by the rustling of papers and the occasional tapping of a pen. Gregor rubs his temples, feeling the weight of the universe pressing on him. His fingers trace the edge of a report he's been reading for the umpteenth time, but his mind isn't on it. He's lost in a fog of exhaustion, wondering how he ended up in this mess. The door slides open with a sharp hiss, breaking his trance. Commander Thorne steps in, his figure imposing against the dimly lit backdrop of the office. The commander's face is stoic, as usual, stern, unreadable. His uniform is pristine, a stark contrast to Gregor's disarray. He steps forward, the weight of his presence filling the room. "Commander," gruffly. "Gregor, you've been sentenced. A very important and dangerous task. You'll have to feed the cat." Gregor blinks, confused. "The cat? What cat?" "Commander," his voice tinged with impatience. "The alien cat. Don't ask questions, just go in there and do your duty. Be careful." Gregor stares at the commander, trying to process the words. His mind races, but there's no making sense of it. The mention of the alien cat sends a shiver down his spine. He's heard whispers, rumors, but nothing concrete. No one talks openly about it. He watches as the commander turns and walks toward the door, leaving the words hanging in the air like an ominous warning. The door shuts behind the commander with a soft click, and Gregor is left alone, staring at the sign on the wall that reads, "Alien Cat Cell." He feels a knot tighten in his stomach. Confusion turns to unease as he rises from his desk, his boots making hollow sounds against the metal floor. The mission is simple, the task mundane, but why does it feel so wrong? The camera lingers on Gregor's face, his furrowed brow and the deep uncertainty in his eyes. He hesitates, wondering what kind of creature could warrant this kind of secrecy, this kind of fear. The cold, metallic corridor of the Eternal Dominion feels even colder as Gregor approaches the containment area. The dim lights overhead cast long, stark shadows across the walls, adding to the oppressive, otherworldly atmosphere. The hum of the ship's engines is louder now, reverberating through the walls as Gregor's boots echo with each step. The heavy door ahead of him slides open with a mechanical groan, revealing the chamber within. Inside, the air feels thick, almost electric. The room is bathed in a soft, unsettling glow, emanating from strange, pulsating energy pillars surrounding a large containment cell. At the center of the room lies the alien cat, massive, its body a flowing mass of golden fur that seems to shimmer with an unnatural radiance. It lies still, but its presence fills the entire space, making the room feel smaller, like it's bending around the weight of something ancient and powerful. The cat's size is overwhelming, its body stretches impossibly long, its paws alone the size of a small ship's engine. Its fur, a deep golden hue that contrasts sharply against the cold steel of the room, seems to shimmer with an eerie light, as if the very air around it is charged with a strange energy. It is a creature that should not be, yet here it is imprisoned, yet still, it exudes an overwhelming sense of something far beyond anything Gregor has ever encountered. Gregor hesitates at the threshold, staring into the creature's cell, his breath catching in his throat. He steps forward, his eyes never leaving the cat. A wave of unease washes over him as the door closes behind him with a soft hiss. The lights in the room flicker faintly, casting shifting shadows across the cat's still form. Gregor, whispering to himself, awestruck and nervous. This is the cat. The sound of his voice feels strangely small in the vast emptiness of the chamber. He stands motionless for a moment, unsure of what to do. Then, with trembling hands, he reaches into his ration pack and pulls out a small pouch of food. His mind races with questions, none of which he can answer. What does a creature like this eat? How does one feed an ancient, cosmic being? With a deep breath, Gregor takes a cautious step forward, holding the ration pack out in front of him. The cat, still unmoving, continues to stare at him with an unsettling intensity. Its eyes are two vast, black voids that seem to pierce through him, pulling at the very core of his being. The air around him thickens, as though the space itself is holding its breath. Gregor, nervously, his voice trembling. I guess you want some food, right? The cat's eyes suddenly snap open, the blackness within them deepening. Its gaze is all-encompassing, as though it can see into Gregor's very soul. The light from its eyes seems to reach out, enveloping him, drawing him in. The moment the cat looks at him, a strange, dizzying sensation floods Gregor's mind. It's as though the room itself is tilting, or perhaps his perception of reality is warping, twisting around this powerful being. Gregor stumbles slightly, his vision blurring as his breath becomes shallow. The overwhelming force of the cat's gaze makes him feel as though he's being consumed by it, his mind fracturing, his thoughts slipping away. Gregor, whispering, fighting the dizziness. What is this? The cat's gaze never wavers, its eyes still locked on him with an intensity that feels as though it's burning into his very soul. The space around him feels alive now, like the walls are closing in, the energy in the room crackling with power. His heart races in his chest as he steps closer, his hand trembling, unsure if he is walking into the maw of a great cosmic force or merely feeding a pet. The air is thick with tension, and Gregor stands motionless before the alien cat, feeling an odd, magnetic pull towards it. He doesn't understand what compels him, but something deep inside him tells him to do it. His hand moves without thinking, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small, innocuous laser pointer. The red dot it emits is a simple thing, but as Gregor shines it onto the cold metal floor, the room seems to hold its breath. The light from the pointer dances briefly across the floor, its small glow flickering in the shadow of the massive, golden cat. For a split second, the cat does nothing, its vast, still form almost serene. Then, as if something stirs deep within it, the air around Gregor begins to change. The cat's pupils snap open. They dilate, expanding into deep, endless voids, blacker than any shadow in the room. The light from its eyes seems to devour the very space around them, pulling Gregor's gaze like gravity. Its legs, massive and powerful, twitched ever so slightly, a signal of a long-dormant power stirring to life. Gregor, under his breath, a sense of dread creeping into his voice. Oh no! In an instant, the air seems to vibrate. The cat moves, but not in the way Gregor expects. It doesn't simply rise from its resting position, it launches forward, an explosion of speed and power that sends a shockwave through the air. The ship shudders. The walls groan as if the very structure of the Eternal Dominion itself is in pain. Lights flicker, then die, plunging the room into near darkness, only the faint, eerie glow from the energy pillars casting a pale light. Alarms begin to blare across the entire ship, their shrill cries filling the corridors with chaos. Red emergency lights flash on the walls, throwing long, frantic shadows in every direction. Officers scramble in panic as the tremors grow worse. The Eternal Dominion groans under the pressure of the cat's movement, as though it's struggling to contain the energy unleashed from its massive form. Gregor stumbles backward, his heart pounding in his chest, barely able to keep his footing as the ship rocks with an unnatural force. His breath comes in quick, shallow gasps. The cat, now fully awake, is a force of nature, a living cosmic storm that has been unleashed after eons of imprisonment. The sound of the ship's metal hull creaking fills the air as Gregor watches in horror. The cat is no longer an enigmatic, otherworldly being confined to its cell. It's a wild, untamable entity, and Gregor is no longer certain that he'll survive its fury. The entire Eternal Dominion warship is plunged into chaos as the ground beneath Gregor's feet begins to tremble violently. The vibrations start as a low, rumbling hum, but quickly escalate into violent, unpredictable shakes, rattling the walls and floor. The very core of the ship seems to groan, as if it's fighting against something far beyond its control. The lights flicker, casting frantic, erratic shadows across the corridor. The once steady hum of the ship's engines is now a constant, deafening roar that reverberates through the metal. Alarm bells scream through the halls, their harsh, shrill sound cutting through the chaos like a blade. Red emergency lights flash, bathing the ship in an eerie, frantic glow, while the overhead screens blink with urgent warnings: energy fluctuations detected, system failure imminent, hull integrity compromised. The ship is under attack not from an external force, but from the very energy unleashed by the cat. In the control room, officers scramble to make sense of the disaster unfolding before them. The floor shakes beneath their feet as they rush to their stations, trying to stabilize the power systems. Panic is spreading among the crew as they struggle to contain the growing instability. Officer, shouting over the chaos, voice trembling. "We're experiencing a massive energy fluctuation, emergency status." Gregor stumbles as another violent tremor rocks the ship. He's barely able to stay upright as the ground beneath him shifts wildly, making the entire corridor seem like it's buckling under the weight of an invisible force. His breath comes in sharp, panic gasps, and his mind races, trying to make sense of the disaster. Gregor, panicking, looking around, his voice laced with disbelief. "No way. What just happened?" As Gregor looks around, the cat remains in the center of the room, completely undisturbed by the chaos it's causing. Its eyes are locked onto the laser pointer as if it's nothing more than a toy, a simple distraction. But with every movement it makes, every flicker of its massive tail, the ship shudders more violently. The containment field around it seems to ripple with energy, the glowing pillars pulsating erratically, as though the very fabric of reality is being warped around the creature. The power systems throughout the ship begin to fluctuate wildly, lights flickering and dying in some sections while others flood with blinding brightness. Alarms blare louder, drowning out everything else as officers on the command deck shout orders, desperately trying to regain control. But no one knows what is happening or how to stop it. The cat's sheer presence is tearing at the ship's very core, causing everything to unravel. Gregor, still rooted to the spot, watches in horror as the cat continues to bat at the laser pointer, utterly oblivious to the damage it is causing. The ship lurches again, and the walls seem to bend as if they might collapse at any moment. Panic fills Gregor's chest as he realizes the scope of the situation. The cat's playfulness is wreaking havoc beyond anything he could have imagined. The air is thick with tension. The whole ship feels as if it's teetering on the edge of disaster, and everyone aboard knows it. Gregor can feel it too, the impending catastrophe. The cat's playful behavior might be innocent to it, but to the Eternal Dominion, it's a ticking time bomb. The room feels even smaller now, suffocating under the weight of the cat's presence. The once cold and sterile walls of the containment chamber now seem to close in on Gregor, the air thick with tension. The cat sits in front of him, its massive body filling most of the space, its glowing eyes locked onto him with an intensity that makes Gregor feel as though it's staring straight into the depths of his soul. Its golden fur, once shimmering, now seems to pulse with a dark, almost foreboding energy. There is an eerie stillness in the room, as if the universe itself has paused, waiting for what comes next. Gregor stands frozen, his mind racing, trying to make sense of what is happening. The ground beneath him trembles again, and the low hum of the ship's failing systems only adds to the mounting pressure. His heart is pounding in his chest, his palms slick with sweat. He's at the edge of something far beyond his control, a confrontation with a being that could erase him from existence without a second thought. Gregor, muttering to himself, voice shaking. What am I doing? I could die right now, or... He can't think clearly, his mind overwhelmed by the surreal nature of the situation. He stares at the cat, which is still staring at him with those unblinking, black hole eyes. The weight of its gaze feels like a physical force pressing down on him, suffocating him. Every fiber of his being screams to run, to get away from this thing, but his feet feel like they are glued to the floor. His only choice is to face it. In the midst of his panic, something inside Gregor snaps. In desperation, he opens his mouth, saying something he never thought he would, something completely irrational, but it feels right in this moment, like the only thing left to do. Gregor, desperately, without thinking. If I give you more food, would you promise not to kill me? The cat's response is chillingly calm. It blinks slowly, and for a moment, time seems to stretch out, as if the universe itself is holding its breath. The room is silent except for the low, ominous hum of the energy pillars around them. The cat's gaze never wavers from Gregor, its eyes growing even darker, more intense. Then, a low purring sound begins to emanate from deep within the cat, vibrating through the air and the very walls of the room. It's not a sound of comfort or warmth, it's deep and predatory, sending a shiver down Gregor's spine. The sound fills the chamber, vibrating the metal walls, and Gregor's teeth begin to grind in response. He feels an instinctive sense of dread crawl up his spine as the purring deepens. Every part of his body tells him to run, but he stands frozen, gritting his teeth, trying to hold on to whatever semblance of control he has left. Gregor, gritting his teeth, whispering to himself. This has to be a trap. The cat's eyes narrow slightly, its tail flicking lazily. Its purring continues, louder now, almost deafening, as though it's completely entertained by the fear and confusion swirling inside Gregor's mind. But it doesn't move. It just sits there, observing him, as if waiting for something to happen, waiting for Gregor to make his next move. Gregor's heart races as he stands at the precipice, his life hanging in the balance. He's made a choice, whether he understands it or not, and now he must face the consequences. The air is thick with tension, the very walls of the ship seeming to breathe with the power of the cat. The atmosphere in the room has shifted in an instant. The violent trembling, the chaotic energy, it all fades away as if the universe itself has paused to witness a strange, unexpected turn of events. Gregor, still standing, feels the weight of the moment pressed down on him, but this time it's different. The cat, once a looming presence of terror, now lies sprawled on its back, its massive paws curled lazily in the air. Its glowing eyes are half closed, and the deep, resonating purring continues, vibrating the very air around them. The monstrous entity, once an instrument of fear, has shifted into a form of comfort, its massive body relaxed and unthreatening. Gregor stands frozen for a long moment, the strange, almost serene atmosphere in stark contrast to the terror he had felt just moments ago. He blinks, trying to process what has just happened. The tension that had been suffocating him is gone, replaced by a calm he can't quite understand. The cat's gaze flickers toward Gregor, and for the first time, it doesn't feel like a cold, judgmental stare. There's something different in its expression. It blinks slowly, its black hole eyes narrowing ever so slightly, and Gregor feels a shift deep inside himself. The cat, thinking, its voice echoing in Gregor's mind. You are not bad. Gregor, still processing the situation, exhales in a shaky breath, his mind spinning with disbelief and relief. The tension that had been coursing through him now feels like a distant memory, replaced by something much quieter, something he can't explain. The realization hits him like a wave. The cat has chosen to spare him, and in that moment, something inside Gregor has shifted as well. Gregor, relieved, his voice barely above a whisper. "So, I'm alive." The cat doesn't answer immediately, but there's a sense of acknowledgement in its gaze, a strange, almost imperceptible tilt of its head. It's no longer an entity to be feared, it's something else. The air in the room, once charged with menace, now feels oddly calm, like the storm has passed. There's no more imminent threat, no more sense of danger. Instead, it feels like the beginning of something entirely new. The cat. Now you're no longer just a background detail. You've passed the test. Gregor stands in stunned silence. The words sink in slowly. He has passed some sort of test, but what does that mean? What is the cat testing him for? 1,000 questions race through his mind, but the cat doesn't seem inclined to answer them. It simply watches him, its massive form sprawled comfortably on the cold floor, purring softly. Gregor looks at the cat, the full weight of the situation finally settling over him. He realizes, with a strange sense of clarity, that something inside him has changed. Whether it's the cat's strange form of mercy or the bizarre bond that has formed between them, Gregor now understands that his life, his purpose, has taken a turn he could never have predicted. He's no longer just a soldier, he's something more. Something different. The room is quiet now, the tension long gone, leaving only the low, steady hum of the ship's failing systems. Gregor's gaze doesn't leave the cat, a mixture of awe, fear, and confusion swirling within him. He knows that this moment will define everything that comes after. His future, and the future of the Eternal Dominion, now lies in the hands of this ancient, cosmic being. The tension that once consumed the ship has now dissipated, leaving an eerie quiet in its wake. The Eternal Dominion drifts through the vast emptiness of space, its massive engines humming softly, a stark contrast to the chaos that had gripped it moments ago. The energy systems are still unstable, the lights flickering in certain parts of the ship, but for the most part, the catastrophic force of the cat's actions has settled into an uneasy calm. Gregor stands before the cat, who now occupies the center of the room, its vast, golden form stretched comfortably across the cold floor. The cat's gaze, once piercing and terrifying, now seems distant, almost contemplative. It watches the stars outside the viewport, its eyes reflecting the vastness of space, as if searching for something or perhaps simply waiting. The ship's viewport reveals the vast, endless expanse of the galaxy. Stars twinkle in the distance, cold and distant, surrounded by the inky black void of space. The silence outside seems to mirror the newfound stillness inside the ship. Gregor stands there, feeling the weight of this surreal moment, the immense power of the creature before him, and the inexplicable shift in his own role in this vast universe. Gregor, still trying to grasp what has just happened, takes a hesitant step toward the cat, his mind swirling with questions. He's no longer just a soldier carrying out orders, something has changed. The cat's strange, mysterious decision has marked him, elevated him from the mundane existence he once knew. But to what end? What happens now? Gregor, speaking to the cat, voice uncertain. So, what now? The cat doesn't immediately answer. It simply sits there, its body relaxed and calm, its eyes still fixed on the stars outside. It is as though it's contemplating something far beyond Gregor's understanding, something ancient and profound. The seconds stretch into minutes as Gregor waits, his heart beating in his chest, wondering what this new life will bring. Finally, the cat speaks not with words, but with a deep, resonating thought that fills Gregor's mind, like a ripple in the fabric of reality itself. The voice is calm, yet carries the weight of finality, as though this is a decision already made, one that cannot be undone. The cat, its voice echoing in Gregor's mind. We'll go together, and do something more interesting. Gregor stands in stunned silence, processing the words. Something more interesting. The implications of those words are immense, far beyond what he could have imagined. He is no longer just a lowly soldier, he is now part of something far greater, something that will transcend the ship, the Empire, and perhaps even the galaxy itself. The cat's gaze shifts to Gregor, and for a moment, their eyes meet. It's not an expression of judgment or threat, but something almost knowing. The cat knows something Gregor doesn't, something it has waited millennia to find. And now, it has chosen him to walk beside it. Gregor doesn't fully understand why, but he feels the weight of the choice, and with it, a sense of destiny he never thought possible. As the ship glides through the infinite void, Gregor feels something stirring deep within him. He is on the precipice of something unimaginable, and for the first time in his life, he is not afraid. Instead, he feels a strange sense of curiosity, a curiosity that matches the cat's own, a curiosity that will drive them both forward into the unknown. The eternal dominion drifts, carrying with it a soldier who was once insignificant and a creature who has witnessed the rise and fall of empires. Together, they are about to embark on a journey that will alter the course of history, if history even matters anymore. Gregor stood on the empty command deck of what had once been the heart of a mighty empire. Beside him, the cat, that ancient, universe-warping entity, casually licked its paw, as if it hadn't just rewritten the fate of an entire galaxy. All across space, fleets were pulling back. The ones who once fought for the crown now stood silent. No more emperor. No more throne. No more commands. Just people. And a very peculiar alien cat that had finally found something worth its interest. Gregor sighed, eyes scanning the stars beyond the shattered viewport. A faint, ironic smile crossed his lips. So, I just saved the galaxy. The cat closed its eyes, tail curling gently around his leg. Its voice echoed inside his mind, quiet, ancient, absolute. You are still sufficient. Gregor let out a genuine laugh, tired, amused, and a little scared. High praise, coming from you? The cat stretched luxuriously, victorious in every way. I was always staying. Gregor rolled his eyes. Of course you were. Why would I ever think I had a say in this? He turned, walking into the dim corridor, past scorched bulkheads and flickering lights. A civilization had fallen. A war had been avoided. And one completely average man had done something no emperor, no fleet, no god could do. Behind him, the cat followed, silent, curious, and for the first time in 3,821 years, genuinely intrigued. The galaxy would move on. No rulers. No chains. Just people choosing their own futures. And one very, very satisfied cat.